How does a fish get to the other side?
The other side of what?
I don't know.
Was that a joke?
It was, but I don't remember what it was.
Welcome to Ask a Kansan, a podcast where we interview Kansans about their lives, perspectives, and just the things that make this state great. So 9 months ago, we were working with a guy, and he said, "You guys should start a podcast." And we were like, "Okay, we'll do that." And we kind of thought it would be easy and fast. And here we are 9 months later, and a fair amount of investment later, and we're actually doing it. And so it's a very exciting day for us here.
Yeah, and I wanted to do all of this in like 2.5 months, and then Gus was like, reality needs to kick in. It's not going to take 2.5 months. I'm like, but I want to do it now. But we're excited to finally get going.
So, Cindy, could you tell us a little bit about our guest today?
Yeah, so our guest today is Leslie Bishop, and she is the director for Salina Downtown. And she's more than just her title. She's a mom. She is a woman in leadership. She builds relationships with everyone that she talks to. And we chat a little bit about that in this episode. And we're super thankful to have her on. She is just the best. And she has a personality that is kind of infectious because she kind of wears her heart on her sleeve a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so, and she's not afraid to tell you what she thinks. And it's great.
Yeah, it was a wonderful conversation. So without any further ado, here's our interview with Leslie Bishop.
Okay. Well,
hi.
Leslie, hi. So we've got Leslie on the podcast today. And so thank you for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be asked. Thank you.
Yeah. So we are Ask a Kansan. So are you originally from Kansas? Are you a transplant?
I am a transplant. However, all of my family, I have a brother, and I have some stepbrothers, and they were all born in Kansas. But my brother, my mom, and my dad were all born in Kansas, except me. I was born in Tucson, Arizona. And though all of my growing up years, we would travel to Kansas for the summer to visit grandparents on both sides.
Oh, wow.
And depending upon which direction we were coming, my mom's folks lived in Maxville, Kansas. We would drive. My dad's folks lived in Paxico, so that meant we got to fly in to Kansas City and drive to Paxico. So I was in Kansas as a small child, and then I transplanted here in May of '81 when my mom remarried and we moved to Salina, Kansas.
How did your mom or how did your family end up in Arizona?
My dad graduated from K-State, so did my mother, and my dad went to law school and got accepted to law school at the University of Arizona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they obviously divorced since my mother remarried. So. And my aunt and uncle lived in Salina, my mom's sister. So I remember coming as a child to Salina, and I loved their house because it was 2 stories. In Arizona, you don't have 2-story homes, and you certainly didn't have a basement. So it was a treat.
Oh.
What was it like when you came to Salina, in '81?
At first I was really nervous. I mean, it was the summer before my senior year in high school. But I will give credit to my stepdad or my dad, Jerry Knowles, who is no longer with us. He did a great prep work, waiting for he talked to Clay Thompson, who at the time was the principal of Central High School, and Clay invited me to the school before high school started, gave me a tour. So in all reality, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I will admit that I told Jerry that when I turned 18, I was going to graduate high school and I was going to move back to Tucson. And here I am 60, almost 61.
What, when did that thought change for you? Was it when you turned 18 or kind of through?
It probably before I turned 18, but it was the one thing I realized. And at that age, I didn't know.
No, nobody knows anything at that age.
But I do know that it was having a family unit again, sitting down at dinner at the dinner table. Even Jerry was a rural real estate realtor, had Knowles Country Real Estate, and we'd have harvest, and Mom and I would take the fried chicken dinner out to the fields, and then we'd eat dinner at like 10 o'clock at night. And I just didn't realize how much I had missed, because my folks were divorced when I was in fourth grade, and it wasn't a very friendly divorce. So realizing that family unit, I didn't realize how much of it I missed. And then Jerry was tremendous to me, and I just knew that I didn't want to move away.
Give me your top 3 things about Kansas that you like.
The 3 things that I like.
Mm-hmm.
I love the spring in Kansas. I do just love that drive from here east, going to Kansas City and going through the Flint Hills.
Magical.
And I love the feeling of Kansas in the summer. Like, that doesn't mean I like the weather, but I love the feeling of Kansas in the summer, where even though we're in 2025, there's still that tradition of the combines out in the field and baseball in the heat of the summer in August, and the River Festival, and kids, just you're out and it just feels like summer. Mm-hmm. I do not care for the wind and the humidity, but I think, and I know you said 3, but I think the 4th would be 2. Just there is tradition still here in Kansas. I think families still have traditions that they follow, sitting down for dinner. Mm-hmm. Family reunions, I think, are still prevalent here in this part of the country. But the sunsets, sunrises, all of those things are magical in Kansas, and I don't think people understand how beautiful our state is. Mm-hmm. During different times of the year, because honestly, there isn't one state in our country that is beautiful 365 days out of the year.
True.
That's so true. Because even in like winter and fall, like if you look across the Kansas landscape, there's so many even just different colors of brown. Yeah. And I know that's the weird thing to say, and how it all ties together between all the different grasses and the tall grasses and trees and all of that landscape, and that you can look out and see all those colors, all the differences. It is beautiful, even though some people are like, oh, look, a dead field.
Well, subtle beauty. Yeah.
And, Kansas is not the flattest state.
It's not.
It's Florida.
Yeah.
So, and when you're driving through the Flint Hills, if you're not on I-70, maybe you're on a back road, mm-hmm. and watching the immature wheat, the green, and it's blowing. I mean, it's just gorgeous, And then, of course, Little Jerusalem, out west, I mean, poor Western Kansas kind of gets a bad rap.
They do.
But, that's those, and I remember when my son, he's almost 23 now, but we would go out to Mushroom State Park.
Yep. And
there was one mushroom formation out there, and Evan called it the Bat Cave, and there's lots of history in Kansas, and I think it's lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we it's funny that you say Mushroom State Park, because I took my daughter there once this past spring, fall. I don't remember when, and now every time she goes, "Can we go to the mushroom place?"
Yeah,
the mushroom.
Can we go? And I'm like, that's fine, because from McPherson up to there, we pass Canopolis, I think. So we stop at Canopolis, we play at the playground, and then we go up to the Mushroom State Park, and then we come back down. It's like you can do that in an hour's drive.
Right. We would call when I stayed home with Evan, and when he was about your daughter's age, we would call them summertime adventure days.
Oh, I love
And we
that.
would pack a picnic, and we'd go to Abilene, go to their park, go to Lindsborg, go to their park, Brookville, go to their park, Mushroom State Park, out to Canopolis. And you're right. It was we drove, go into the Flint Hills, and love big cities, enjoy them very, very much. But, you just can't pick up a picnic lunch and put your kid in the car and be somewhere completely different and then be home in time for dinner.
That is, gosh, me and you are on the same wavelength. I could go on and on about this, because that's one thing that I've started doing with my daughter. She's 4. And one of the best things that I did this past year, is take her on hikes. And we went to the Tallgrass Prairie National Park. Uh-huh. And that was only like an hour and a half from our house. We did a 3-mile hike. She did all 3 miles by herself at the age of 3. And the best part is there's like a little creek in that. And so she got to take her shoes off and play with the tadpoles in the creek. And we ate lunch by the creek. And somehow I got the poison ivy and she didn't. But it was.
We both got lucky in that.
But we were home by 3:00.
Yeah.
And
Well, I will suggest then it's a little further. I mean, but Cottonwood Falls.
Oh, I haven't heard
And
that
they
one.
have a great park. And then they have that bridge that goes over the waterfalls.
Oh, okay.
And that is a beautiful drive. You get off like you're going up, before Manhattan. And Evan loved that park so much. And they had those kind of Art Deco-y spinny things.
Uh-huh.
And he loved it so much that he vomited, but he wanted to go again. And so those are summertime memories in Kansas.
Yeah.
But it's just, those are special moments that, no cell phones, all of that thing. And just getting out and being outside and being together and creating memories.
Yeah. Does you have a big family, right?
Big blended family.
Big blended
Yes.
family.
Uh-huh.
How many of them are still in Kansas?
Let's see. There's me and Martin and Steven. So there's 3 of us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then my other brother lives in Arizona still. And then I have a stepbrother that lives in Europe.
Okay.
And then, of course, my mom is still living and she's here.
Yeah.
And then my husband, he's from Kansas and his family so his 2 brothers still live here. And my sister-in-law, and then my nieces and nephew, I guess we have 3 now. They're here, and then my son, Evan, is in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, cool. Do you guys get together often?
We don't get together as often as my mother would want us to, but we do, and we they tip again. River Festival, Smoky Hill River Festival, is a big time for Martin and Carol who live in Kansas City to come. They live in Overland Park to come home, and then Evan comes, and then. But sometimes we'll split the difference. Sometimes everybody will come here to Salina, and then oftentimes we'll go to Overland Park and stay with Martin and Carol. Especially when we have, like, if Scott and Mary, who live in Tucson, easier to fly into Kansas, MCI than it is to, and sometimes they drive. But yeah, I mean, and I have cousins too that live in Topeka in the Kansas City, Kansas area, and the exciting thing is a few of my cousins came here for right between Thanksgiving and Christmas and hadn't been to Salina for a while. And so they were really excited about everything that's happened here. It's families. It's hard sometimes when you get everybody going and doing their own thing. But to answer your question, again, we get together, but not as often as we probably should.
So one of the reason I kind of bring up the family and because I want to get into relationships on how you have an amazing talent for creating relationships and sustaining them, at least from my eyes. And is that something you've always naturally done, or do you have to work at that? So I bring up that because of your Salina leadership group that you get together with, or even just as your job as the director of Salina Downtown, you obviously have to maintain a lot of different relationships with all the business owners. So is that something you've naturally done? Do you have to learn that over time?
It was not natural in my early years. Believe it or not, I was incredibly shy.
Oh, really? I would have never guessed
and
that.
as a small child, any attention given to me, I just cringed. But I think going back to when I moved here in my senior year in high school, I kind of, with Jerry's help and encouragement, and my mom too, but there was a point in time where something's happened and said, either this is going to be good or it's not. And then I found high school drama, and I fell into that, and that helped bring out some of the, the insecurities, I guess, or just, I'm not the only fool around,
I assume you're talking like theater drama. Right?
Theater drama, yeah.
Not like the clicks.
Yeah, no. Yeah, performing art, theater drama. Wow. Yes. And that really kind of changed the tune for me. And then some just heavy life stuff that I've been through on a personal level. And then, falling into this job, there just came a point in my life that I am who I am. I don't intentionally try to hurt anyone or be inappropriate in inappropriate times or any of those kinds of things. But I just, I am who I am, and I don't have all the answers, and I admit that, and I make mistakes, and I admit those and try to fix them. And smiling is a big part of it, and we just take ourselves so seriously, it seems like, all the time. Mm-hmm. And the other really cool thing, and when you're referring to the leadership class, it's all about the people you surround yourself with. It's much more fun to be around people like the Janelles of the world and Jessica and my leader, when they can all laugh at themselves too. And then the whole other side of my world is in the world of recovery, and all of those people who are working hard every day just to do the next right thing and stop taking ourselves so seriously. So it's just, it's okay to misstep at a city commission meeting. You're going to survive, but also know when it's appropriate to talk to a person a certain way when you know what their personality is like. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it's a learning process. But and when I turned 60 last year, it was like, you know what? I am never going to be something for everyone. I know I'm not I refer to myself as not being the cherry on everyone's sundae. But I never intentionally try to be anything that I'm not. And I work really hard at correcting my wrongs and making my apologies when needed. But it's never intentional.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other thing too, maybe it's a little easier in 2020, early 2025, or the times that we're living, and it's so contentious everywhere that gets tiresome too. And so there's other things that I've stopped doing, like I've stopped watching the news, and just surrounding myself with really good people who will tell me, Leslie, kind of being a jerk. Okay. And that's okay, and then being there for my friends is really important too. And supporting one another in whatever life journey they're taking, Mm-hmm. And I think Kansas has a really good sense of how important that is.
That is very true. It's that we know that we all have to rely on each other.
Yes.
I think it has to go back, probably far back, as if, I want to say farmer days, but like when people came to Kansas, they had to rely on one another in order to just survive. So I think that's just a mentality that we've just kept alive over and over and over. I'm not a great historian of Kansas, but I'm assuming that's what everyone had to do.
I have a brief anecdote.
Yes, please go on.
My ancestors settled in the country between here and Lindsberg, and they're from Sweden. And, it was a long trek to get here, had to take a boat and everything. This is late 1800s. And they got to their homestead out south of town, and winter was setting in. They'd been delayed a little bit, and they didn't have anything. I mean, they had the cart, their trunks, and a field. And they saw some smoke coming up over the horizon, and they went over the hill, and there was a family they had known in Sweden, and they ended up spending the winter there with that family in their homestead. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is that's what it took early on to survive in such a harsh place, was the ability to just welcome people in regardless.
And I think Kansans do a good job of that. I mean, I certainly felt that at the, young age of 17, in teenage years. And I also attribute to the fact, too, that there wasn't a whole lot, you didn't have the internet and didn't have your cell phones, and people weren't taking pictures of you and you didn't know it. And the other thing, just recently, just the snow that we had.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
I mean, my neighbors, I live next to the executive director of the food bank, and I got stuck. She got stuck. The neighbor came out, and we were all shoveling each other out, and we were laughing and falling in the snow, and we all said, okay, we're in the driveway now. We're going to stay there and work from home. And I saw that just driving to work on a few mornings where people were just pulling over and helping one another. And certainly true back when Jerry was alive and doing the wheat harvest, you chipped in. And you drove the truck to the elevator, and you helped your neighbor, and you brought the meals. And when the same is true when people have a baby or newly married or a death in the family, you see that rallying cry, and everyone comes together. Now, I'm sure it happens in other places, but I obviously see it more here. But somehow it feels a little bit more genuine.
Mm-hmm.
This episode is sponsored by Renaissance Cafe. Serving Northern Italian cuisine prepared with a fresh, contemporary influence, the Renaissance Cafe is one of Kansas's favorite restaurants. Whether you're planning a romantic dinner date, a family celebration, or an intimate meal with friends, the Renaissance provides a unique dining experience with an old-world atmosphere. Open Thursday through Saturday evenings, the Renaissance Cafe is located just south of Salina in Assyria, Kansas. Visit renaissancecafeassyria.com to book your reservation today.
Yeah, the coming together piece. I mean, we're in a world that's like so divided right now. It's fascinating when we can come together and work together and then just like forget that. But for some reason, a disaster has to occur for us to figure that out.
Sadly. Mm-hmm.
Like if you take the California fires, for instance, or
9/11.
the snowstorm, 9/11, like we're like, oh yeah, we don't hate each other all that much. I guess we can start liking and working together now. So, but with that, as Kansans, we are pretty good about working together and knowing that we have to lean on each other through this and work through that. So yeah.
It seems like one of the strengths of Salina in the last 5 years has been our ability as a community to work together without a real negative force causing that. And I think your work at Salina Downtown speaks highly of that. You're bringing people together to work, benefit each other, and it's awesome.
Well, and I also think, Gus, too, to that point, I feel like the people, there are people that live in Salina who don't have to live here. I mean, they have, you think of the business, what your dad did, and what you're doing here at Feely and what we just talked about, Dave Heischel and Great Plains and Vortex and the record place that makes the vinyl record. Yeah. I mean, all of those things, there's so much that is so terrific about Salina, but coming together, especially like you were saying, I don't feel like there's a hidden agenda in it. Mm. It's for the betterment of Salina. And individually it's better for us and our families, but I just feel like it's a common goal that we're coming together to make this place a place where people want to gather and create traditions and memories and I have felt that there just hasn't been a hidden agenda in a lot of it.
Yeah. I feel that a lot. And how do you think leadership kind of plays into that? And like how, I'm not necessarily saying, what do you think about all of our city commissioners? No, I know but like,
we love
but like
them.
how does leadership play a role in how we not necessarily live our day-to-day lives, but like how we act toward each other? Does that make sense?
It does. So Skylar and I talked quite a bit about this, and I think leadership is funny for me because leadership is an action word, and I will say I think Salina tends to be a little backward thinking. Like we're not. I feel like sometimes leadership in Salina is not very forward thinking. Slow. We've always done it this way. This is how it works. I do think there's an old school, old boy mentality in Salina. I think it's been not just the great people. I think women in leadership roles in Salina is slow to be accepting. I think it's getting there with Renee being the CEO and president of the chamber, Linda Salem, all those things. But being I don't think we're going to probably have a female city manager, but I think women often get overlooked in leadership roles, or maybe not taken seriously. I don't know. And I'm not trying to get on a big feminist bandwagon, but I do think that I think leadership is important. I think people in Salina like to be around people who they think are leaders in Salina. That sometimes feels like it's important to people, who you know, where you live, what kind of car you drive. I do wish, though, that there was a little bit more of a forward thinking that it just because it was done that way, or this company's been here forever, or it does. We need to be willing to work with people who want to come to Salina and start something here, and it shouldn't be so difficult because that's the way we did it back in 1980.
Want to spread your organization's message across Kansas? Consider becoming a sponsor. Ask a Kansan has a unique focus on Kansas and its people. By sponsoring our podcast, your organization can reach people from Canarado to Kansas City, Wichita to Washington, and all the great places in between. We have a variety of sponsorship packages available to fit your budget and needs. For more information, visit askakansan.com/sponsorships. or call us at 785-571-9507.
I kind of want to shift a little bit to kind of your leadership in how you kind of found your space, because you may not think it, but I consider you a leader in Salina, because you've done amazing things at Salina Downtown and even through Leadership Salina, and your willingness to be vulnerable about your CKF video and just your experience, that's demonstrating leadership to me. So did you have any women in your life that really showed you what it was like to be a leader, or again, is that something you had to kind of teach yourself?
No, I mean, I would attribute all of that to my mom. I mean, honest, that sounds, oh yeah, sure. No, my mom. I mean, my mom, she was a school teacher by trade when we were in Arizona. She was teacher of the year. Then she was woman of the year. And then she switched gears and went to work for the government. And then she was the director of tourism for the state of Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And then, we moved here, and then she got very active in the chamber here. And then she's the reason why Salina Downtown Business Improvement District is what it is. I mean, she's the first downtown director, which is so surreal. It didn't even occur to me until like a month after I was in this role. She was a woman of achievement, award recipient. So my mother, for sure. Not to say, I was a typical latchkey child, and I missed her a lot, but she was a tremendous role model. Never made me feel like I couldn't do anything just because I'm a girl.
I love that.
I also knew, what's interesting is I knew I always wanted to be a mom, and I knew I wanted to stay at home with my child. So, I kind of feel like I did everything, a lot of things backwards. Like I started my career in hospitality and hotel and sales, and then my now husband. We got married at 35, first time marriage, and then had Evan at 37. Stayed home for a lot of those years, and then the job that I'm in now, it was nothing I was looking for. I was getting my hair done downtown. And the gal that cuts my hair said, hey, they're looking for somebody up at SDI to work as the office administrative assistant. And I'm like, I could do that. And I was at a point where Evan was in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. My husband traveled a little bit with Berg Camp here in Salina. And I was looking to get out of the high school because that was a perfect calendar job for me, because I could be home when Evan was. And I did everything you're probably not supposed to do. I called Jim Loader at the market shop, and Wayne and Peggy DeBay, and at the Flower Nook, or the then Flower Nook, and Larry Bunker and Gary Martins at Peaceful Body, and said, whatever I need to do, tell them that I should have this job. And right time, right place, really. Yeah. And then Penny, I started in March. She resigned in May, and I just kind of felt my way through it. And a lot about this job that I'm in now is about just being relatable, being accountable, showing up, doing the work. If it doesn't work, try again, and make no apologies for it. Unless, of course, it really screws up. But then, and so here we are, and it is not lost on me how fortunate I am. Every morning I wake up, and because before, to have to be at work at 7 was like, oh my goodness. And now it's like, oh, it's almost 7. I need to get to work, and I don't have to be there at 7, but I want to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure with what you all do here, I get more done in that hour than I do when the phones start ringing. And the very exciting thing is to see the enthusiasm behind the people that come downtown and visit downtown, because it does make a difference. But it makes a difference for everybody, not just me. And you're very kind. Your intro to this was very kind. But honestly, I don't want to start tearing up. It's not lost on me how very grateful I am.
You're gonna start making me cry. So, I have a random question. It's not even remotely related to anything, but it comes to you as a mom. You said it was a conscious choice that you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. You wanted to be there for Evan. Was that because your mom worked so much?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And she missed a lot, and I missed a lot. And I knew I didn't want Evan coming home and having, to turn on the television and do his homework alone, or much to his chagrin, he probably would have loved it. But yeah, that very much so. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I also believe any mother is a working mother. And it's the most underpaid job there is. And it doesn't stop when they're 4, and it doesn't stop when Evan turns 23 next week. So I made a ton of mistakes, and there would be a lot of things I would do different. But it is how it is, and he still talks to me and still tells me he loves me. So it's a win-win.
Win-win. Okay, cool.
But I have a great husband too, who was a very great role model for Evan, and Jim was very supportive of me staying home. So you just realize, okay, this week we'll get this, and next week we'll get that, and you realize that you take the free day trips to Brookville or Abilene or wherever it may be, and you find ways to make experiences that don't have to cost a lot of money. I would just add to the one thing that I've learned, that it's okay to say no. It's okay to protect yourself, and it's okay to say no when you're not really comfortable about what it is you're being asked to do. And I learned that early on in my role. But on the same side, it's okay to say yes, even when you're scared, and even to think, yeah, I think I could do that, but I'm really not sure. But okay, and it's okay to say I want to be invited to the table, And I think when we're going back to the Kansan personality, I think it's much easier to do that here in this part of the country, I think, than it would be if you were in a big metropolitan setting like New York, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, LA. Sadly, probably not right now, but there is something to be said. I think you may not get invited back, but you are welcome at the table initially. And I don't know if that happens everywhere. And I'm grateful for that, because I do think that when you show up and you suit up, you get invited back, but then you find your role. You find your spot. So maybe it didn't fit, but it's okay to say yes, and it's okay to say no. And I think that's important, especially if you're in a leadership role. I mean, you can't do it all. And I think you surround yourself with people who can do things better than you. And that's what I've tried to do. I don't always like it. I want to know everything, but I also know that I can't do it all, and something will slip, and that's not good. Not good for the look. It's not good for the brand. It's not good for anything. And I think that there's some honesty to the Midwestern heart, pride.
I've always loved Ad Astra per Aspera as our state motto, just because I think it's optimistic. Like, we're going to the stars. That's great. But it's also realistic in that there's going to be difficulty along the way. And I think a lot of saying yes and no is about, acknowledging what you're actually capable of in the moment and rising to the occasion and going further than you thought you could.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I feel like I am now in my journey. I submitted we have with Main Street America, which downtown Salina is affiliated with. There's a big conference like most organizations have, and this year it's in Philadelphia, and I was asked to maybe consider submitting a topic for a breakout, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that, and I did. I thought, well, I can at least submit it, right? And they accepted it. And back to the yes and no thing, one of them in my little spiel is going to be, but I said yes to something that was scary, but I know I can do it. And it will just get better the next time. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not selling myself as an expert. And again, it speaks to that Midwestern heart. I mean, yes, you run into all kinds of people with all kinds of personalities and all kinds of, highfalutin, and they want to be recognized for everything that they do. But I think there's more people in this part of the country and in Kansas that don't really want to be seen. Don't want, your neighbor across the street's one, and that's special. I think that's very special.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things we're hoping to do with this podcast
Yeah.
is shine a light in some of those places that maybe aren't so publicly visible.
Yeah.
And those people that are making a difference, even if they're not necessarily getting all the credit for it.
Yeah.
Because then I think we can certainly find it with the snow we had. It's not how the streets got plowed wasn't perfect for everyone. But you know what? The city worked darn hard.
Yeah. That was a lot of
And
snow.
that's
to
a
move.
lot of snow. And it just didn't fall in pockets of Salina.
No.
And I find, and I'm sure you find this much more than me, but those who complain the loudest seem to get the most credit, or what? Not even credit, but the most camera on them.
Yeah.
And I think finding those hidden gems, those special, you're like, oh, that's really cool, and they should be recognized or highlighted, or however you want to word it. But there is some Midwestern, thoughtful pride where I don't have to be the center of. It's kind of like that Tim McGraw song, just remain humble. And I think that speaks to our part of the country.
What's your next big goal for Salina that you want to see?
That's a tough one. Golly. I think, I'm excited about the expansion at the airport. I think all of that's going to be amazing. This sounds maybe like a cop-out. I think what I would like to see in the next big goal is for Salina to stay the course, to continue this momentum that we've been seeing in the last 4 to 5 years of bringing recognition to the things that we're doing. You all do that here. I love your motto. Tell the
fight for the good of the world by telling stories that matter.
And I know that sounds kind of like really wide, but I think if we can stay the course, bring the people together that want to do for the common good, that would be huge. I would love to see more retail, more unique retail. I mean, we definitely need something for men,
That's
those are
not the truth.
And those maybe aren't the big giant goals, but I would like people looking in to think, yeah, I could do business in Salina. But then on the same side is what I was speaking to before. We need city leaders who are willing to break the mold a little bit and not make it so challenging to work and start business here. And always, I want to continue to encourage and show the importance of just supporting our local neighborhoods in Salina, whether it's the local stores in downtown Salina, which of course but the local stores outside of Salina, the downtown district. We need to support our own people, and I don't know if people really understand how important that is, and that's one of my goals, to constantly just say, it's important. You don't understand how important it is when 80 cents of your dollar can stay here versus going to Dillon's and only 10 cents of your dollar, or Target. That's a big difference. And that only allows us to stay the course, to continue to grow and be the town that we know we can be. I mean, Salina is, you may see it too. Salina is being recognized, is being noticed, is being looked at. And that is amazing. I was in Birmingham, Alabama last year at the conference, and I sat down with new directors, and they asked me where I was from, and I told them, and they're like, yeah, Salina, downtown Salina, I've heard about it. And that's what I want to see keep happening.
What's your hope for women in leadership in Salina?
And maybe expanding that just slightly to Kansas.
To Kansas, yeah.
What can we do in Kansas?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, it's amazing that we have a woman governor, and then I've already mentioned Renee. I think it should be okay to have a female mayor, a female city manager. But with all that said, the women have to do it. The women have to sit up, apply for the role. And I guess, it just comes back to women have a lot to offer. Men do too. But there needs to be a conversation on both sides so that both visions can be seen. And I guess I would just encourage women in Salina and in Kansas all around to continue to aspire to be whoever they want to be in whatever role that may be, because no matter what you're doing, you can be a leader. On what level, that's entirely up to you in your own personal journey and growth story. But women have to step up and do it. You have to take the chance, and probably or get told no a whole lot more than maybe the person that's running against you if it's at a different gender. But it would be, I mean, we're one of few states that has a female governor, and that's kind of huge, I just don't think that our local leadership is very strong in the woman sector. Is that even the right way to say that? I don't know.
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
And I don't want it to sound, and I know I don't need to preface this, so it has nothing to do with what's happening now in the current leadership we've got. it would be nice to
have a variety.
Yeah. But you also have to, if you're going to complain about it, then do something about it, or don't say anything at all.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to see you run for city commission?
Hell no. No. But the good thing is, though, with the city commission, and this has been an interesting journey for me, and I learned a lot of this from Jerry Knowles, and I give him a lot of credit for a lot of things. One, for loving me like a daughter when he didn't have to. But he said, as long as you can just shake a hand firmly and hold yourself tall, people will look at you. They may, and then they'll want to get to know you. And the city commissioners may not always like me because I show up like a bad penny sometimes. But you know what? They all say hello to me. They all shake my hand and they all smile. And at the end of the day, they know the only thing I'm trying to do is to make downtown Salina a better place. And those city commissioners, whether I align with them on any kind of level, I consider them good people, and I think that they can say the same about me. And what else? Do I see them every night? No. Do we talk every day? No. But when I see a Trent Davis in a tourism meeting at the Visit Salina Annex, he can walk out, shake my hand, and say something in my ear, and I feel okay. It's those are good things that happen, and we're fortunate that we live in a city where our city commissioners, our city leaders, talk to the common folk like me. That doesn't happen in larger towns. Anyway, that was more than you wanted, I'm sure.
No, that's perfect. Well, you've been amazing. Thank you.
This has been great fun. Like I told you, Skylar and I could have gotten on the whole other thing about women in leadership.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Really
Thanks
appreciate
for what you're doing in our community.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks you for what you all do in our community too. It's fun. I still love looking at our website.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Have you heard people in your organization say, we need video? At Feely Creative, we develop videos to drive your marketing strategy. We are problem solvers, crafting messaging and visuals to achieve business goals. Whether you need to share your organization's identity, convey company culture, attract the right people to your team, or put your products on display, Feely will help you communicate effectively and get back to what you do best. Let's get creative. Feely Creative.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Leslie, really connecting with her and learning more of her story. Probably one of the biggest takeaways for me was her. I'm a mom, so I always relate to moms really well. And even though, her son is grown up, I have a 4-year-old, it's connecting on that level, and then knowing that her mom was a really big influence for her, and my mom was a huge influence for me. So I even had a stepdad that basically adopted me too. So I never realized how much our stories connected. And I wish we could have talked for like 2 hours, but I don't think we would ever left. So having those moments with people and understanding where they're from is really important, I feel like, especially if we want to start understanding each other and growing relationships, not just like within our community, but within our state. And and things along those lines. Like, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me was in my life journey, there's been times when I didn't want to be like my dad. I wanted to chart my own journey. And then I've kind of found myself not falling into the rut, but following a similar path to him in some ways. And I felt like Leslie's story kind of indicated the same thing, that, she never sought out her mother's job with Salina Downtown, but yet she ended up doing the same thing and following that path. And we have a complex relationship with our parents.
Yes.
But it's neat to see how it can carry through to what we do in our lives.
One question I wish I would have thought of to ask her was, what was her mom's feedback when she told her?
Oh, yeah.
I wish I would have thought of that yesterday. I'll have to ask her, and then we can put it in the comments or something. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we wanted to just let you know a little bit about what you can expect from this podcast moving forward. We're just getting going. This is largely experimental at this point. And so we're anticipating your feedback, and, we're hoping to get this to a weekly release, but probably not.
We're going to start fitting things in, getting people scheduled, and hopefully start making this regular.
Yeah, we're going to try to go monthly for now, and then maybe get more frequent as we go. If you have somebody that you think is important to the tapestry of life in Kansas, would you tell them about this podcast and send them our way? We would love to bring them on.
Yeah.
And also, if you think this is valuable to you, would it be valuable to anybody else in your life? Could you share this podcast with them? That would mean an awful lot to us here.
We're getting our social medias up, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that jazz. We'll see if TikTok is still around when we post this.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. It could
that is very true.
Could
be illegal to post after this is edited and done. But
I wanted to give you a window, one of the things we're focusing on with this podcast is how intertwined our lives are in Kansas and how Kansans work together to do big things. And this room is an extension of that idea. It took a lot of people to get from what this room used to be to what it is today. So we just wanted to briefly walk you through this list of people. And thank you to all of these people. Some of them don't even know of their contribution, but so I'll start with them. So all of the beautiful art you see behind us almost all of it came from Kansas artists. There's maybe one or two pieces that aren't. But so thank you to Sherry Shippey, Rachel Miller, Marissa Jagger, L.H. Amon, Daisy Friesen, Donna Morgenstern, Jim Richardson, and Lee Becker.
And that is just a few.
That's a few.
Just
there's
the ones that we
several
know
that
of.
we don't actually know. Like there's an Ad Astra thing up there that doesn't have a name on it. So who knows who made it? Probably a Kansan though. So thank you to all those folks. We also worked with a team of contractors to pull off this.
Yeah.
Contractors aren't used to building studio space, so we have to have them do some weird things. So thanks to Greg from Hard Rocks, thanks to Hall Construction and Precision Electric. My wife Hannah did a lot of the set decoration and pulled that together. And then kind of our core team we have here in the studio with us is Skylar Nelson, who's our producer. And then behind the scenes in the control room is Merlin Shippey, our technical director and editor. And we also have some people on our team that helped with lighting and cinematography. That's Devin Fredricking and our graphic designer, Michael Freeland.
Yeah.
And our music, at least initially, is from my band, Everyday Lights. It's a piece called Horse Thief Canyon, named after the many different locations in Kansas named after horse thieves.
It's a trend.
It's a trend, not one we're particularly proud of, but a trend nonetheless. So I think with that, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Thanks for listening if you've gotten this far.
Yeah, and I hope you'll tune in again. We look forward to uncovering more of kind of the magic of Kansas here on Ask a Kansan.
See you next time.